What if the deadliest serial killer in American history was hiding in plain sight for nearly 20 years, going to work every single day, attending church every Sunday, and raising a family, while police desperately searched for him? A man so calculated that even Ted Bundy couldn't figure him out. This is the story of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, and the shocking confession that finally revealed his true monstrous nature. Before we get into this disturbing story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our true crime content. Now let's dive in. In the summer of 1982, bodies began washing up along the banks of the Green River in Washington state. Young women discarded like trash in remote wooded areas and shallow riverbanks. Police initially hoped it was isolated. It wasn't. Within months, more bodies appeared, then more. Women were vanishing from the Pacific Highway South Corridor near Seattle and Tacoma at an alarming rate. Families reported missing daughters, sisters, and mothers. But because many victims were sex workers or runaways, their cases didn't receive the attention they desperately deserved. The Green River Killer had identified his hunting ground perfectly. He knew which victims society would overlook. He knew which cases would receive fewer resources, and he exploited that cruel reality for nearly 2 decades while living the most ordinary life imaginable. Gary Ridgway specifically targeted vulnerable women along Pacific Highway South, an area notorious for prostitution near Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. He'd cruise slowly, offering rides and money, appearing friendly and completely harmless. He'd show victims photographs of his young son to appear trustworthy. He'd make casual conversation, ask about their lives, and make them feel safe. Then, he'd drive them to remote locations and strangle them with his bare hands. What made Ridgway uniquely terrifying was his complete lack of victim preference beyond vulnerability. His victims ranged from teenagers to women in their 30s. Some were sex workers, others were runaways simply trying to survive. He killed women of different races, different backgrounds, and different life circumstances. Between 1982 and 1998, Ridgway confessed to killing at least 49 women, though he claimed the actual number was closer to 71. The real total may never be known. He often couldn't remember specific victims by name or face because to him they were completely interchangeable. They weren't people, they were simply objects satisfying a monstrous compulsion. After strangling victims, he'd return to dump sites repeatedly, sometimes to move bodies if he suspected police activity nearby, other times for deeply disturbing reasons investigators found difficult to even document. He placed bodies in deliberate clusters across multiple counties, specifically to overwhelm investigators and contaminate evidence. By 1984, King County had formed a dedicated Green River Task Force, one of the largest serial killer investigations in American history. Dozens of detectives worked exclusively on the case, following thousands of leads that consistently went nowhere. That same year, Gary Ridgway appeared on their radar for the first time. A witness had placed him with one of the missing women. Detectives brought him in for questioning. He was calm, cooperative, and completely convincing. He even agreed to take a polygraph test. He passed. Police released him and moved on to other suspects. Ridgway went home, went to work painting trucks the following morning, and continued killing. The investigation grew so desperate that detectives made an extraordinary decision. They consulted Ted Bundy, who was sitting on death row in Florida. Bundy had operated in Washington state himself and offered surprising insights. He suggested the killer was almost certainly returning to dump sites and likely forming disturbing attachments to victim locations. Bundy was completely right on both counts. But despite these insights, the case remained ice cold. Then in the late 1980s, the killings seemed to simply stop. Investigators wondered if the killer had died, relocated, or been imprisoned for unrelated crimes. The terrifying truth was far simpler. Ridgway had just gotten more careful. For nearly a decade, the Green River case collected dust. Detectives retired. Families lost hope. The victims were slowly forgotten by everyone except those who loved them. But in the late 1990s, DNA technology was advancing at a revolutionary pace. King County investigators decided to re-examine biological evidence collected from several early victims using modern forensic techniques that simply hadn't existed when the murders occurred. Detective Tom Jensen led the re-examination effort. When genetic material recovered from multiple victims was analyzed using advanced technology and compared against old suspect samples, one name emerged from the database: Gary Ridgway. Investigators remembered him immediately. The truck painter who'd passed his polygraph back in 1984, they still had his DNA sample from that original interview. The comparison was made carefully and thoroughly. It was an undeniable match across multiple victim samples. On November 30th, 2001, police surveillance teams watched Ridgway leave the Kenworth truck factory where he'd worked for decades. As he walked to his car, detectives approached quietly. There was no dramatic confrontation, no chase, no struggle. Gary Ridgway was arrested without incident, looking completely confused about why police were interested in him after all these years. Prosecutors faced a critical decision. They had overwhelming DNA evidence connecting Ridgway to several murders. But dozens of cases remained unsolved. Many victim families still didn't know what had happened to their loved ones. Bodies remained undiscovered in remote locations across Washington state. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, prosecutors offered Ridgway a deal: full cooperation, complete confessions, and assistance locating undiscovered remains in exchange for consecutive life sentences rather than execution. Ridgway accepted without hesitation. What followed were months of confession sessions that investigators described as simultaneously invaluable and deeply disturbing. Ridgway sat calmly across from detectives, describing murders with the same casual detachment someone might use discussing their grocery shopping. He drew detailed maps to dump sites. He described specific victims, though he frequently struggled to remember individual faces or names. He explained his methods, his routines, his careful planning. He admitted to returning to victims after death. He described how he'd wash bodies in the Green River to eliminate forensic evidence before dumping them. But his case also proved something extraordinary: that DNA technology can reach back across decades and deliver justice that once seemed completely impossible. No matter how long it takes, science is increasingly ensuring that killers cannot hide forever. If this story moved and disturbed you the way it does me every time, smash that like button to help more people discover these important cases. Drop a comment with the true crime case you want covered next. I genuinely read every single comment. And please subscribe with notifications turned on so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.